Hello everybody, welcome back to Easy Weeknight Cooking with Heart's Desire Spice Blends, and tonight we're going to be doing the great Pico de Gallo. Now last year we taught you how to do this basically in a food processor, and not all of you have one. So we're going to do the more manual way. So what are we going to need? We are going to need, of course, Mexican chili powder. Beautiful stuff. It's our blend of the month. It smells and tastes like enchiladas. How could it get any better? Really? You're going to need about 2 tablespoons of lime juice, 3 tomatoes, about 1/4 of a red onion. Trust me, red is best, but if you don't have it, go ahead and go for a white or yellow. 1 clove of garlic, not the whole bundle, just 1 clove. About 1/2 to 1/4 of an Anaheim chili, and some cilantro. About 1.5 teaspoons of minced cilantro in this. A little bit does go a long way. It's pretty strong flavor. 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon of sugar and salt to taste. So why don't we get started? What we're going to do first is we're going to go ahead and cut up our tomatoes. And there's an interesting process here. You can go ahead and check out the recipe right in the description. And what we're going to be doing with these tomatoes, the reason why we're cutting those first, we're going to drain them. Now, one thing that we do want to avoid is Pico de Gallo soup. Definitely don't want that. A lot of times you'll go to, say, a Mexican restaurant or try to make it yourself, and half the bowl is liquid, and we want to avoid that. So what we're going to do is, got myself a colander here over a bowl, and you can see that we have a good amount of liquid in there. And that came just from these 2 tomatoes. So we're going to cut up our 3rd tomato and put it in there to drain while we cut up the rest of our ingredients. We're going to cut this in half to start with. Definitely want a very sharp knife for this. Otherwise, they do not go through tomato skins. So we're going to do relatively thin slices here, so that we can mince this really well. Keep a good eye on what you're doing, or else you run the risk of cutting yourself, especially with tomatoes. So relatively thin slices. There you go. We're going to cut out that stem end. I'm going to stack these slices on top of each other. Cut them in strips, and do be careful with this. They do slide away a lot, so pay really close attention to what you're doing with this. And then turn them 90 degrees and give them nice fine dice. And go ahead and do that with your remaining pieces. And the one that's on the very end, that cap, is usually one of the main culprits for sliding away everywhere. I like to move my tomatoes into a nice little line, and then take my chef's knife like so and use a rocking motion to go ahead and cut those up even finer. And go ahead and mince away. I generally like to use food processor for this, but like I said, not everybody has one, and not everybody wants to get one out. There is kind of a charm about large chunks, you know, just almost unevenly spaced chunks of tomato in your fresh Pico de Gallo. It kind of makes everybody assume that it was homemade, right? Go ahead and put that right in your colander. That makes room for the other half. Okay, scoop and put right into our colander. Now, I've got the colander over a bowl for a reason. Sometimes when you let things drain, it gets a little too dry. So I want to reserve some of that tomato juice just in case. So I'm going to go ahead and give this a good stir. Kind of mash these up against the side a little bit, and those ought to drain really well. There we go. Now put that aside while we get the rest of our ingredients put together. Basically, the remaining vegetables that you're going to be cutting up in whatever order you desire, and you're going to put them in a separate bowl. So I want about 1.5 teaspoons of cilantro. I'm going to start with a bundle about, and feel free to cut up the stems here too, because honestly, cilantro is one of those few herbs, and it is an herb, honestly, that the stems have almost as much flavor as leaves. So you're gonna really mince those up because not everybody likes a large bit of cilantro when they want a bit of salsa on a chip. Go ahead and give those a really fine dice from both directions. Turn your knife 90 degrees and let's take a look. Okay, now I do have 1.5 teaspoon measure right here. Let's go ahead and see if my guesstimation was correct. Pretty close, but not quite. So I need a little bit more. And slice that up, and we have a really nice little mince right there. Go ahead and pour that right on in your bowl, and we are ready for our next ingredients. So I really love garlic. This does not taste the same without it, seriously. So get whatever size clove you really like. Me, give me the honkers. When doing garlic, you can either use a garlic press or just mince this really finely. We want as much air to get to every part of that garlic as possible to just really develop that garlic flavor, because the juices of garlic really do develop a very pungent flavor after they come into contact with air. So not everybody has a garlic press. I'm actually going to do this the old-fashioned way, and we're going to put this on the cutting board and smack it with a knife. So on the cutting board it goes, knife goes on top with the blade facing away from you always, and smack the knife. That really allows me to peel it much more easily. There we go. We're going to make several slices on this up to the root end, then go ahead and mince from this direction towards the root end. So slicing it vertically and then dicing horizontally is usually the way I go. And this is a really big clove, so this is awesome. Get as fine a dice as you can get off of this, because like I said, you want as much air to hit as much garlic as humanly possible to really develop those garlic flavors. And I can go ahead and give it another dice. Now, oftentimes in Mexico, salsas are made in a giant mortar and pestle. I forget the name of it, but we actually use one in the blending kitchen just for nutmeg. And so all this is actually not only diced, but then ground. It's great. Now that you've minced up your garlic, look at that. Seriously, that's a ton of garlic. Put that right in your bowl. And now we're going to need about 1/4 to 1/2 Anaheim chili. You can use whatever chilies you like. I like the Anaheim because it's really great for the tender tongues. About half of this goes right in the bowl, and chop off whatever end you like. If you've got tender tongues in the family, then you're going to want to make sure you don't get any seeds, because those seeds really do concentrate the capsaicin, which is what makes peppers hot. And we're going to dice this baby up. Gotta love that. The smells coming off this cutting board are tremendous. Yum. Go ahead and scoop those up, and right into the bowl they go. You can tell that I cook by smell so many times. Alrighty, our red onion, we want 1/4 of this baby. This would be about 1/4 of a large onion. So go ahead and put 1/2 aside, and from stem end to root end, we're gonna give it another slice. And now cut off the stem end, and how many of you already know what I'm going to say? Leave the root end, and then just peel off the very first layer, and it feels like a dream. So go ahead and give this several thin slices towards the root end, but not through it. And that will allow you to use that root end as a wonderful handle, and it's much less dangerous to cut that way. And give yourself some really fine slices the other direction. I'm kind of holding this together right now. And there we go. Got to make a few more cuts in order to make this a nice dice. Now, you can leave this in kind of large dice, or you can cut it up even further if you want those flavors to just meld a lot quicker. Oh, yum. So when we are done with this, we're going to let it sit for at least half an hour, because all the flavors are going to become one with each other and you get the best salsa. It is so good. I am going to give this a little bit more of a finer dice because I don't want to wait too long for all those flavors to come together. I'm impatient, can you tell? So into the bowl it goes. Oh, yum, yum, yum. What do we need next? We have our vegetables in here except for the tomatoes. The tomatoes have given up a lot of their juices, and so it looks like we are not going to have salsa soup, but just great salsa. So I'm going to put our tomatoes right in the bowl right here. Oh yes. Oh, I love it. Seriously, guys, look at all those colors. Oh, and you do not see a lot of water in the bottom. Now is when you're going to just really mix this up, get everything kind of well incorporated before we put in some of our other flavoring agents. And we're going to get it well incorporated then too. Now, a word on sugar and salt. Sugar is going to be to basically bring down the acidity of this so it's got less of an acid bite. Sometimes people will use a little bit of sugar to bring down the capsaicin bite as well. And your sugar and salt, if you use it, will both bring out some of the liquids in the salsa. So don't be too surprised if you see it kind of becoming salsa soup later on. So we're going to be adding Mexican chili powder. Now this is 2 teaspoons of Mexican chili powder right in the bowl. Salt to taste, and about 1/4 teaspoon of sugar. What else do we need? Lime juice, my darlings. So we are going to be putting in 2 tablespoons of lime juice. And the lime juice just brings out so many of those flavors. Salsa isn't salsa without some sort of lime juice, lemon juice, that kind of thing. I have tried vinegar in the past. It's just not the same. So honestly, I do heartily recommend lime juice. It gives a flavor that just isn't present in lemon juice. So if you do not have lime juice, but you do have lemon juice and you're in a pinch, go for the lemon juice. And now we're just going to go ahead and fold this all together. Oh, gorgeous. Now this is a slightly darker salsa, darker Pico de Gallo than oftentimes people might think. And why is that? Because of the Mexican chili powder. That, my friends, is a beautiful Pico de Gallo. Oh man, look at that. Oh, yum. And it smells tremendous. So a beautiful Pico de Gallo. We're going to let this sit for about half an hour before serving it to everybody else, but I don't want to wait that long. So what am I going to do? I'm going to try some. So I'm going to pull out just a little bit. And the favorite mode of consumption is this, or in 7-layer dip with several of these. Look at that. Oh my goodness gracious. Isn't that beautiful? Get me a good sized chunka hunka. Oh, it's not bad just the way it is. Oh man, you really can taste the garlic blooming. All the flavors just kind of hit you at once. It's great, but you can pull out a little bit of the cilantro. You can pull out a little bit of the Anaheim. The tomatoes are wonderful, and you can actually pull out a little bit of the lime juice when you eat it just really fresh like this. Obviously, I came up with the recipe, so you know, I already like it, especially if I'm giving it to you twice. But from our house to yours, our kitchen to yours, this is a really fantastic Pico de Gallo that doesn't have a ton of heat. And oh my gosh, it's so flavorful. You don't have to, go to a jar in order to get really great, flavorful, fresh stuff. So from our kitchen to yours, keep things tasty, and we will see you next week with Burrito Mix.